Welcome everyone to our March meeting of our the ACUHO-I Housing Facility Services Committee meeting. We've got some new faces, some people that have joined us before, and I'm really appreciative that you all taken the time to join us again today. So we'll go through and I'm going to go through the slide deck stuff. We've got some discussion topics that I think we can kick around. I've got some on there from last month's meeting because Gary said he was going to update us on some of the things that they were doing, that they were working on coming around COVID. So we'll do just some quick updates on a few topics that we've gone through in the past, and we'll talk about some other discussion items that Paul has put on a main one for us to really talk about. So I'll go ahead and get started. Again, my name's Steve McKenzie. I'm the director of that University Housing Facilities at the University of Oregon. So let's see here. What is this? Oh, there we go. Just a few notes about this session. Conversation-based, not a traditional webinar. This is more of a roundtable discussion. I really enjoy roundtables and enjoy the participation of everybody in on these. I get a lot out of them, and I think everyone does. So please speak up, raise your hand, wave, and we'll get you included if you've got some context that you'd like to provide to the group. So be a part of the webinar. If you can keep your microphones muted when not speaking, but please do provide some input and ask questions and concerns about any of the group as we go along. We've got a wealth of experience and knowledge on this call in a big way. So, and please do introduce yourself as we go. So I'm going to go through kind of what our committees, some of our committees and committee updates and everything are today. Our conference and program committee. The conference is currently scheduled for September 19th to the 22nd in New Orleans. We were having some discussions about that with some of us on the call, and Josh Ganna, our ACUHO-I representative, that 19th to the 22nd is move-in week for many of us. So I don't know if Josh will be able to work magic and change anything. I know Aubrey Smith is logistics manager at Ohio State. She's I don't think she's going to be on the call today, but I do see Allison is on the call. Allison, are you? I think you're there. Can you do you have any updates for us on the conference at all? Oh, well, she was here. Anyhow, so we've got the conference is scheduled to be face-to-face in New Orleans. We'll see. Being that it's move-in week, it's going to make it really challenging for many of us who are on the quarter schedule to get there, because I know for University of Oregon, and I know Josh up at the University of Washington is the same thing for him. That's move-in week for us, which is going to be a real crunch. So
yeah, and thanks for acknowledging that, Steve. I don't know if there's going to be any way to mitigate this. Just for some context, when 2019 hit and all of the conferences went dark, there was a lot of contractual movement around with venues, and this is a remnant of that. So this is actually the 2019 contract with the host site now moved 3 years down, and so the options have been relatively limited on dates. So we do recognize the impact of those dates, and I'm working with staff to see if it can be mitigated, but I just don't know yet.
Okay. Well, thanks, Josh. hopefully you'll have some luck in that, because that is going to be some real challenge with our group, and it's gonna hurt our numbers significantly, I think. So, so there's Allison. I see her. Do you have any updates for us, Alan, on the conference? Oh, can't hear you.
Allison, your audio is not working.
Yeah.
Is this better? Can you hear me now?
That's better.
Okay, great. Computer issues. I had to restart it. And then wrong one. Apologies for that. So I heard the tail end of what Josh was saying, that I know the dates were concerned last time, and it sounds like that's not going to be changed, but Josh, if you can pull some magic strings, please do. But yes, we are anticipating being in person, and other than that, I don't have any other updates.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for that, and we'll stay tuned. We'll see what can take place, and if there's any way to get that date changed to possibly back to October, would really be outstanding. We'll keep our fingers crossed on that. So, communications committee. This is where our friend Joel comes in. Joel, what do you have for us? Anything update wise?
Hey y'all, good afternoon. Yeah, as far as the communication committee side of things, we were a very small group, and I'll be honest, I've dropped the ball on my end as far as keeping us, moving forward on tasks and programs and everything like that. So no major updates here. That form, the link that's listed in that slide, I need to double check to see if that is still active and collecting data or not, but I had posted on the ACUHO-I open forum and the listserv of emails that I have. I referenced it in there as well about if there's anyone that y'all know that you want to make sure that they're getting the email updates from us, or just being a part of any sort. Oh, Teresa just said that the form is still active. So cool, I can still pull information from there. So I will continue adding that to future postings and everything like that. But at the very least, on the very minimum side of things, an email to me, email to Steve, or anyone on the committee, we can make sure to get whoever in your organization, whether it's colleagues from another institution or someone that moved, who used to be a part of this committee, but they're at a different school and they haven't updated their email address with us, anything like that. Feel free to pass that along to us, and we'll make sure to get that refreshed and updated. And we get the same thing too. If people are like, hey, you know what, I don't need the email every day because I see the posting on the ACUHO-I, that's fine too. We can pull names off of there and not clutter up people's inboxes. So that's kind of the big update from us. But another piece there too, the ACUHO-I online community, they do have their app. ACUHO-I has wanted us to make sure that we're continuing to reference the app so that people can use that if they don't feel like logging into the web browser in order to see things from there. But from my end of things on the communication committee, that's a wrap there. And Elizabeth, I will be sure to get this person added to future messages. Thanks for letting me know.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Josh. All right. Committee for Recruitment of Minorities and Women in Housing Facilities. This is Dee Dee.
Good morning, afternoon, actually for all of us. I don't have any updates. Our committee has basically been in a state of kind of pause. So just need to get some new membership generated. So I'll be posting to invite folks to join this subcommittee in the future. So no particular updates at this time.
All right, thank you, Dee Dee. The Education and Resource Committee is pretty much, that was being chaired by myself for the past 2 years, and pretty much the same situation that Dee Dee's committee's in. When COVID hit, everything kind of went went dark on a lot of it, on many fronts. So we'll start to pick us up some of this, and some of this we'll talk about it a little bit later on in one of the topic items that came up for discussion today. So we'll talk about how the Education and Resource Committee kind of will fold into some of that discussion going forward. The roundtable, ACUHO-I, the Sustainability Network Connections. This is the next meeting on this is on Wednesday, March 30th. So next Wednesday at 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's chaired by Lisa Alexander. She does a fabulous job in providing real strong direction on the ACUHO-I committee with this. So really good things. I'm scheduled to sit in on that because I think we still, we used to have our own subcommittee on sustainability. Struggled to find a panel chair or a committee chair for that. So we're kind of branching off the main ACUHO-I sustainability program right now. But I think sustainability really needs to, we need to maintain a strong focus within our facilities on that. I know it's something that we're trying to increase our sustainability presence in housing here at University of Oregon on this topic. So, and we've got our executive committee liaison, which is Josh. You spoke a little bit earlier, but any updates for us, Josh?
Yeah, just two other things. You know, we're excited to welcome folks back for the first real in-person engagement with the annual conference and exposition in June 13th through the 16th. That is registration live now. It'll be in Pittsburgh, which if you haven't been tracking closely is a change from the original location in Florida. Florida had some legislation that didn't align with the ACUHO-I's values on inclusivity, and so the move on venue was made to support that. I do see on the agenda there is some committee and network workspace time on both Tuesday and Wednesday. I don't have a detail on how that lines out quite yet, but it seems like there'll be some opportunities for this group to get together in Pittsburgh. The other thing I'd have to share is that my board position is terming out in December, and so we are in the recruitment process for folks to run for the facilities and physical environment position on the ACUHO-I board. If that is of interest to you, nominations are being accepted now online. I'll also put my email address, it's up here, but in the chat box as well, as if anyone would like to reach out to me offline and talk about the position. It's just a really great opportunity to be engaged and represent the facilities aspect of work within the greater housing conversation. So those are it for my updates today.
All right. So, yeah, that would be, please do if you've got an interest in that executive role that Josh currently fills and has done an outstanding job doing such. Please submit your application and your interest into Josh and in that committee. And we'll look forward to seeing you as the next executive liaison for this group. All right, some of these are going to be kind of quick brush overs and just tune-ups if there's any additional input that anybody's had come to light in the last month, going from a pandemic to an endemic phase. Any panel feedback, what's going to stay the same, what's going to return to pre-pandemic, and what's the future going to look like. I know here at University of Oregon, the state of Oregon dropped the mask mandate on the 12th. We held on to it for another week. That ended on Friday. So Saturday was the first day of no masks or masks optional on campus. We're kind of pretty much gearing back all the way to as much pre-pandemic as we can. I'm looking at staffing, getting back to pre-pandemic staffing levels. And we've removed all the signage. So it's back to an optional situation. We're still haven't gotten final direction on isolation and quarantine requirements yet. We're being told that we'll probably have to keep some space available through the middle of April, which will get us after spring break and see what kind of an uptick in any cases might come to light from that. So any others, what are others doing on campus right now?
Steve, I'll go ahead and share. As far as here at Oklahoma State University, there's the mix of, we've kind of pretended like it didn't exist at times in certain ways. But when it comes to like mask mandates, we had one for a brief, short period of time, and then state legislation required that to change, and it became masks recommended. The masks recommended is still in place, but there's talk that might go away in the near future. This current academic year, we've in the GU part of campus, they took down all sorts of directional signage and elevator limits and stuff like that. On the housing side, we left all of our signage that we had put up at the start of COVID. We left that all in place in the halls because we just didn't know, what was going to happen this year. And if things got worse, well, at least we were still covered by having stuff in place. But thankfully, we didn't have anything get too far out of hand. We had a couple buildings as our relocation spaces. We are cutting that back because we're seeing an enrollment jump for next year, which we do have a residency requirement. So that automatically means that our occupancy numbers will grow. So we're needing to put those buildings back online. However, we have identified a different building that was offline for a different set of reasons. And so it's a smaller building, but it's going to be like 12 apartments where we're going to put as many beds as we legally can in the apartments. And it'll serve as our relocation for anything, bed bugs, winter weather, emergency moves for facility concerns, and then COVID going forward if we need to isolate or quarantine anyone. So we will still have that set aside, but not to the same numbers as we did this year. There's been talk about, are we going to take down the rest of our signage and whatnot? Obviously, like hand washing and not putting your mouth on water fountains, like that kind of stuff's going to stay up. We did that as like a permanent thing. Increased hand sanitizer stations, those are going to stay. But some of that other room or community area limits and stuff like that, that will probably be pulled back. We just don't know to what extent yet. Other than that, it is business as usual, I guess.
All right. The new normal. Others. All right, we're going to move on. Move-ins and openings, changes for 2022. Any roadblocks? How's your occupancy looking? For us here, not a lot of changes for 2022. Roadblocks, the only roadblocks that we've got is probably the conference being scheduled at the same time. Right now, our occupancy registration numbers are running about 800 more than they were at this time last year. We ended up opening in the fall of this year, or of 2021, with our maximum number of occupants at that time. So we're looking at having to increase and triple some more rooms. So how's everybody's occupancy levels looking at this point with your registrations?
Steve, this is Gary. We're up, like I think most everybody's up, but we're up close to 800. Searching for space, like everybody's going to be searching for space. I got a few. The roadblocks that I have in front of me is that I am short-staffed and can't find staff, and I'm looking for vendor assistance with staffing, which I really don't want to do, but the reality is that you know, we're trying to do a full, as much as possible, do a full conference season this summer, and you know, doing the cleaning and maintenance in between the conferences is struggle enough, and then trying to do it short-staffed is, and getting everything absolutely ready for the fall opening. That's the big roadblock for me. So where I am.
That's going to be my, part of my questions here is we talk about vacancies and the staffing. We've had to go out because of our extremely busy conference, and we're holding several large track and field events. We're looking to put on 300 to 400 temporary staff. So we've had to go out to about 6 or 8 different temporary agencies. That was a negotiation in peace, because they were pretty much telling us that unless you're going to offer $16 an hour minimum, we probably can't help you. And that's more than our permanent staff make, so really trying to negotiate to that point and get it up as high as we could to be able to bring some in. They're not even going to go out to advertise for staff until probably for another couple of weeks till they get into April. So we still don't know. Working with campus facilities, they're looking at, they've requested to close a bunch of the academic buildings and classrooms so they can reduce their cleaning levels there, and then being able to redirect some of the facility staff, custodial staff over to help out with our busy summer schedule. But I'm curious to say if what other strategies are out there that you were all considering, have considered to try and get these staffing levels up and get the individuals we need to get the work done over the summer months, all these turns and the busy and the uptick in the conference seasons back to normal. Does anybody have anything new and innovative, creative?
I don't know that it's gonna, oh, go ahead, Gary. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, I'm not so sure that even if you have an innovative strategy at this point in time, that it's really have enough time to make it work. We really are behind an 8 ball here, and trying to bring in some kind of new strategy now in March with many of us with the 1st of May commencement and a summer school that starts in 3 days after commencement, and then summer conferences on top of that. I just don't know that there's enough time to do much except brace for it. To be honest about it.
Yeah,
I'd love to have a magic 8 ball and tell you what might work, but I don't. And it's, you're not gonna, raising salaries is pie in the sky for most of us.
Yeah.
It really is. And even if you are able to do that, you're still not going to be competitive with the off-campus venues out there that are at least, in my experience around here, are, $8 to $10 higher just to start at many places. And so the competition is extraordinary, and you can tout our benefits all we want to tout them, but as my staff likes to remind me, you can't eat benefits. So there you go.
and that's the biggest thing is that, the benefits are great, but you can't spend your benefits at the grocery store on a weekly basis, which really makes it And we haven't really seen even, since some of this COVID relief, some of these COVID relief funds and the unemployment benefits that were extended and all that, as they start to time out, we really haven't seen any change at all in the ability to get applications in or anything, and to increase the hiring.
And you couple that with supply chain issues. I don't know about you guys, but we've made our summer order. We made it last month just to make sure that we might have enough time to get supplies in for what we have to do. And now you couple that with, our staff having to face $4 and $5 a gallon gas. I mean, it's how many things can we throw at folks who expect miracles? We'll all get through it. I'm sure we'll all get through it. But I think there'll be a lot of gnashing of teeth and long lines at the bar. That's what I'm anticipating.
Yeah, the supply chain just seems to, I don't think that's getting any better at all. Part of the requirements for us for these world championships is that we need to supply, because we don't have air conditioning in the residence hall rooms at all. It's to supply fans in all the rooms. And we ordered like 2,400 box fans. Oh, it's been at least 2 months ago. Finally got a delivery of 340 of them last week. We don't know when the rest are coming. But it's a little sketchy. Same thing, we're trying to get we're moving to a wireless access for all of our residence hall rooms, and ordered all the door locks over 2 months ago, and they're telling us that we won't see those until latest estimates were June. And we're trying to have 50% of our resident hall rooms on a wireless access control for fall opening. So, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. You just can't get a commitment at all. Every vendor, just almost every vendor we talk to, they won't give us a commitment on timelines, because they don't know. It's not that they're holding back, they just don't know either. So it's making it really challenging.
We just had a meeting. This is Angela with Brill on the vendor side. We just had a meeting last week about this. And even though we're all domestic, it's still the craziest thing. And, we work with our, trucking companies and install companies, and they're all experiencing the same thing that you all are experiencing, staffing and stuff. And, and we're in a situation now, there's no wiggle room. If we schedule something, we really need to keep it on time, because they're scheduling other things. And so if there's any adjustments being made, it's going to be even more of a challenge, which, John mentioned that their construction projects slowed down. It's going to have this ripple effect all over the place, and it's going to be an interesting summer for sure.
Yeah, we're kind of in a challenging spot now with what we're seeing with the increased registration numbers, that we're going to end up having to triple more rooms, and we might end up in a spot where we've got to try and find furniture in order to do that. Obviously we're not going to, that doesn't look promising. And when Gary talks about you just don't have time, those are things that need to be planned out far in advance. And then in this environment with the supply chain, it's
the concerning thing here too, Steve, is that on a couple of fronts. One, the staff, the facility staff, and I'm including all of us into this, at least in my experience, my 30-some years of doing this, is that by and large, I think we're pretty much optimists. We feel like that there's a problem out there that we faced, we can fix it. I mean, that's what we do. We go out and we fix stuff. And now, not only are our hands being tied by all of this stuff, but our legs and everything else. And we want to help, we want to fix, we want to be able to say to the administration that everything's going to be all hunky-dory and everything will be ready. And I think it's going to take a toll on us as mentally and in our work, because it's we're facing a really difficult time here with not, we're used to being able to say, well, if option A doesn't work, I've got option B and option C. But if the trucks aren't running and the supplies aren't coming and the labor's not there, we still have to make do. I worry about the psyche of the facilities folks involved in the administration, because there's not a lot of sympathy coming from up top. When it comes to the students are coming, whether we're ready or not. So dang it, we better be ready. And that's easy. That's the platform. And I agreed with it. I still agree with it. Every year I've agreed with it. But this year is tough. This year is going to be really tough.
And I think we all found that, when COVID hit, I mean, the facility staff was the group that we just kind of had to be here. And then, with the financial impact that had, and having to cut staff back down, there they are. All the entire facility staff is they're worn out. Didn't have an option to work from home. They're beat, and now we're starting to come out of COVID. Yay, that's great. But now we're starting to get back into pre-COVID conference levels, which what all that does is just busy, but with less staff, less ability to get staff. So, and we see this, I think we've seen this throughout all of our organizations, is that just the morale's low. You can't, what do we do? What do we do to boost the morale, to keep them engaged when they're just done? They're exhausted.
And it's not just them, it's us.
Yeah.
That's my point here and it's, there is no typical summer. Every summer is different for everybody. But, there are times when I've had to make a call to a furniture vendor at the last minute and say, I need an extra 45 beds, and that was no big deal. I was able to do that with one vendor or another. Or, I need an extra 40 sets of blinds. I mean, you just run out and some things happen. You just get, and now you're not going to get that. You're just not going to get that level of help or acknowledgement that you can do anything about it. And that's what I'm worried about too. I mean, our staff has always been, as far as I'm concerned, the custodial and maintenance staffs throughout have always been underappreciated for what they end up having to do. And that's going to continue. And how to acknowledge them and make them feel better has been a topic of discussion for 25 years or more that I've known it. And we've come a long way, believe me, than what we started with those kinds of things. But the administration folks too now are going to be caught up into this whirlwind of angst that we're going to be facing. I'm not a all gloom and doom kind of a guy, and I'm not really preaching that at this point. I'm just concerned. I'm just concerned on a big level for all of us.
Yeah. And I'm going to agree with you on that. Also, I feel that the facility staff, maintenance, custodial, grounds, are and always have been underappreciated because we kind of work behind the scenes. Custodial staff comes in early. A lot of times you don't see them. They just people wake up and their bathrooms are clean and their hallways are clean and trash is emptied. You know, you do try and make those connections and get the different residential halls and communities, you know, in contact and in touch with their maintenance staff and their custodial staff, so they're all part of a community. One thing that I'm trying to do is, so when we talk about, you know, I think a lot just don't understand everything that we do. I pulled some reports together off of the facilities condition assessment that we had done a couple of years ago that just talked about, you know, put it together. How many square feet do we take? How many buildings, houses, apartments do we take care of? What does that mean? What's the dollar value of all this? What our maintenance needs are over the next 10 years. And I put that together and put it in a document and went over it with some of my facility staff, my managers, my trade staff, and some of the custodial staff. And even they didn't really realize just how large of a task and a responsibility it is on our plate to take care of. So that I'm really trying to communicate out with management, upper management, just the scope and the level of responsibility that facilities does have in maintaining these facilities for our residents, our students, and what kind of a level of responsibility and stress that puts on our group when we're underfunded, we're understaffed, and make them aware of just what it takes to keep these buildings going. So that's an approach I'm trying to take here with some of my group. But I'm all, you know, I'd be interested to hear what others are doing to really keep, you know, the motivation levels up and to show that appreciation to staff. I'm going to move to quarterly staff events, all staff events, just to give them some time, you know, 2 hours away from doing your regular work to sit and collaborate and network and just hang out with some of your staff over a chili cooking contest or something. I found that those go a long ways. Yeah, obviously money, but we can't pay more. Our hands are tied in that respect.
You can't, you know, I worked in a different state not too long ago, but we weren't even able to budget money for any of that anymore. We had to go out and raise money for professional development because it was no longer, the state would no longer allow us to put that kind of money into the budget. So that's, I mean, maybe that's just the crazy state that I was working in at the time, but I just don't understand, you know, how hard it or how difficult it is to get that message across to people that, you know, our staffs take these positions for reasons other than the housing and residence life staff. We're not here to, you know, we have to teach student development to our staff when they get here. They're taking it to put food on their table for their families, and they're not taking it for it's the next step in my career kind of stuff. And we work hard at getting that student first mentality across to them and understanding the reasons for it. And I just went to CIHO and I had this discussion. I'm going to shut up after this because I think I've talked way too much. But I'm old school, and that's pretty much evident in my conversation. And I got a degree in student personnel. My master's degree is in student personnel. And I had to learn all of those beautiful, lovely student development theorists at the time. And I'll guarantee you, there are probably some of them that are still alive, but if they're not, they're rolling over in their grave. Chickering, Kohlberg, Gilligan, all of them, they're probably rolling right over in their grave because there's no student development going on that I can see. It's all just make the problems go away, appease the parents, and and it's that whole mentality is going that way, and get lost in the shuffle are the people that are actually doing the facilities work in all of that, because they become scapegoats at some time, they become miracle workers at other times. And it really is a change of philosophy and how we're approaching housing in general across the United States. And I'm really, not too keen on all of that, because I think student development is a part of all of what we do, and especially in the facilities realm. And we're losing sight of that. We're trying to put all the fingers in the holes on the dike, and there's just way too many holes and not enough fingers.
Good point. Good point.
One of the things that Brill is doing, maybe this will be motivating to you all in your positions, is in last November, we had a meeting and we were discussing, because we thought, knowing all the things we know, and now fast forward to March and things that have come up since November, we committed to 1,000 beds. Normally we make to order, but we committed to 1,000 beds, 500 desks, and 500 chests and 500 chairs that we will have, and they're done. They're already built in storage in our warehouse. And so if someone calls and says, oh my gosh, I need 20 sets or 20 beds or 20 chests or whatever, we'll be able to do that this summer until they run out, because we're already, we're doing other stuff now, but that stuff's ready. And we were a little nervous because that's a big commitment to keep, in your inventory. But we think, knowing now, especially it's March and, there's already issues, we think this is going to be a good thing. So I already know that out of the 1,000, I think someone's spoken for 227 beds, I think. So now we're down to 700 and whatever that math is. But, we are doing that. And so just shameless plug, if it helps, if someone does need some stuff. And we're about 3 weeks out, only because we need to get the logistic piece figured out, both on the campus and on our end. So if someone has a need, we can do it within 3 to 4 weeks.
Well, thank you for providing that information, Angela, because I don't think you're going to miss the mark on that one. I think you'll do well, especially with it looks like enrollments and registration stuff. It's with that trend as they're going. So good discussion on that. I'm going to move to some panel discussions here. Just some topics that I put on here. I know Paul Jar's on the call today. Paul kind of came up with this first one here, and this has been an ongoing issue for a few years. Consolidating housing facility services to the campus facilities department or area. So basically moving your housing operations, facilities operations underneath the campus facilities umbrella. I don't know if Dee Dee's still on the call. Yeah, Dee Dee's still here. I know Dee Dee's kind of been working through this. I went through this in Humboldt State. Paul, do you want to kind of start this discussion off?
I'll just, and I will acknowledge a couple of things. One, I'm older than Gary. So I too come from a different era. However,
that's pretty dang old, I can tell you that.
I know, tell me about it. Yes, but this is a topic that has been discussed probably for at least 20 years, if not longer. And it kind of raises its ugly head periodically, and depending on who's involved in the conversations, it's a combination of we're good to go, we've got great communication, we've done a lot of planning, to, oh my God, what's going to happen to us? My point being is, I think, and I'm retired, so I'll own up to that too, but I think if some folks would take some time, and I listened a little bit at this early before we started to Dee Dee and Steve's conversation, so I'm glad Dee Dee's still on the call. If there was a group or a group of folks who would be willing to carve out some time and start engaging in dialogue to generate some information for the benefit of all of our facilities, communities, both from the institutional campus facilities operations program and the housing auxiliary maintenance program. And I just would be, I would like to see some movement past we've got great ideas, we'll share them, and then we go on to the next crisis. And this is, this is probably bigger than the folks on this call, but I just would like to encourage people to be thinking about sharing ideas and try to get some folks together to share stuff. Yeah, and Steve, you talked about what you went through at Humboldt, and Dee Dee at her campus, and there are a number of campuses who have gone through this experience. I tend to hear a lot from my housing colleagues, but when I went to the vice president's office, I also got to hear a lot of it from plant operations side. And it's kind of like they have some of the same woes and concerns about this process that we do. They talk over beers at the local pub about things, and they talk about us just like we talk about them. And my encouragement would be, and it's not something that'll get settled on this call, but that if there's a core group of individuals who would be willing to reach out and try and find some folks to start exchanging information and developing some of these resources, Steve, that you mentioned and Dee Dee mentioned, so that our colleagues at all different campuses face this question, and most folks are facing it on a yearly basis. What's the future? And combining with all the challenges that Gary and others have shared about what y'all are dealing with now. So I'll cut it at that, other than to say, I think it would be a tremendous service to a lot of people in the profession if there could be some data collection and conversations and kind of best practices, whatever you want to call it, information to turn to when you're beginning to hear those conversations on your campus. And, so I'll cut it at that. And I just throw that out for some thought and some possible follow-up for anyone who are interested in kind of pursuing it, or, others who might be good to call into some of these conversations. I'm over.
Thank you, Paul.
Paul, if I could ask a question, is some of what you're envisioning, I did hear you mention data, but are you thinking about pulling together actual data, numbers, doing any kind of number analysis as part of that work?
I think possibly my feeling is, I think more basic information for people, colleagues at all levels to be aware of, to be taking into consideration, how to prepare for this kind of what you can do now in advance to, some of it's very, people skill, very soft skills, and some of it's some hard data. So Bart, it really depends on the skill and interest of the people involved and what's out there. I mean, there are a number of campuses who've gone through this process. I am not aware of anything that's come out in the way of from APA or NACUHO or ACUHO about here's a monograph on things involved in the process.
Well, if you imagine any part of that being or involving any type of number analysis, data analysis, number crunching, or anything like that, certainly keep me in mind. I'd be happy to participate at that level. We do have quite a bit of we do planning of student living facilities. We have a fair amount of data about facility sizes and costs and things like that. But some on operational costs, not as much in that arena, mostly capital costs.
Right.
But numbers are numbers, and if you want to envision something where you're pulling together numbers to help justify, why something is some way or what makes sense given the numbers, I'd be more than happy to participate in working with you to design that analysis and pull it together.
Super. And hopefully, and I don't view this as my project. I view this as getting a group together. And, and Josh and our new ACUHO-I director of whatever it's called these days on the exec board could be, see if the association would be interested in helping, move this forward. But Bart, I appreciate it. That's great.
Sure. Okay.
Brandon, you have some input?
I think Dee Dee raised her hand first. I'd let her go.
Oh, okay.
Great.
Oh, I just, I think Paul's point is well taken. You're sort of left to your own devices and what do you need to know? And I think trying to collect data, as he's suggesting, would be things like what questions should you be asking? The things that I think every campus is unique, but I was really surprised to hear all the things that, and I think you would have this if you outsourced, and I'd heard this from colleagues that I talked to who had gone through outsourcing, and it wasn't facilities, but was the private companies that come in and manage your custodial services or maintenance services, but things that you might be used to being done by the team that you now oversee. Once that happens, either with a company or with your own facilities department, what I found is all the things that they're no longer going to do that they used to do. So I have to figure out who moves my furniture now, because maintenance used to do it. Now they don't. I think collecting sample MOUs. What does a sample service level agreement look like? What does a sample MOU look like in terms of expectations? To me, those are two different things. And I've gotten examples from other campuses, sometimes service level agreement. I've seen some from colleagues. It's simply a bunch of Excel spreadsheets that are all about the figures and what you're paying for the service. And I think, the maintenance and trades for me has always been a little bit more complicated as we continue to move through this. But those are the kinds of things that, unless you start asking colleagues or asking questions, I don't even think that some of those things are going to come up for you. And I'm still challenged by that, and just other like best practices, like, the best way to do it is to spend time and resources and regular meetings. Our folks here spent so much time fighting against the outsourcing that they didn't spend any time planning for the transition. Yeah. And so that was a bit disastrous, on top of a pandemic, was when it happened for us. So yeah, I think there's, good questions to ask, good sample MOUs, good sample service level agreements. I'm sure there's stuff that I'm forgetting, but those are kind of things that, if I had a place where I could have gone to pick those things up, that would have been extremely helpful.
No, I think Dee Dee really hit most of what I was going to say there, which is great. I've been on I'm willing to volunteer for this. I've been on it from the opposite side of it, where I inherited a campus maintenance operation that no longer wanted to service housing. So we took the staff and started running it. I've left that institution and now I've moved to another one that has its own maintenance operation, and main campus wants nothing to do, for the most part with us. I really, thinking back through that process, I really think of a couple of questions, but I think the first one, which Dee Dee alluded to, is before you decide which side of it you're going to land on, is do you even have a choice? Because I know in some of the aspects, we were told you're getting the staff, get ready, and there was really no recourse to say, well, wait a minute, do we really want that? And I think I've seen it other ways where the combination of staff or the combination of services was forced. And there was an illusion that there may have been some argument to be had about it, but at a certain level, well above one's pay grade, someone had already decided that this was going to happen. And I think that can save you a lot of weeks and months of plotting and digging when, the decision really was made and they're just trying to make everybody feel good about it. So I think that's the first thing I've been through. I would recommend, getting the honest answer to that. I think the other thing is everyone believes that there's cost savings somewhere. And I think Dee Dee alluded to that as well, is that oftentimes there's not, because when you have your own staff and your own operation, typically you're getting a couple of things or, around the edges that are extra that you're not really paying for because you just have the staff there. that once you go to a billing for service model or you pay for a la carte items on the side model, the savings that you thought you would find suddenly disappear, or you end up giving them to third parties that do other work for you. So I would recommend anybody who's going down this road to run, a couple of financial models based upon what you think is going to happen, but do it in your school's way of processing money. So if you're a RCM school, apply the RCM rules to this decision that are going to apply to it in the fiscal year that comes right after it. I think that was something that, had that been done at some other cases that I've seen people do, I think that would have made the decision a lot more. I don't know if they would have changed minds. Again, I think the decision was made, but I think it would have been a lot more visible, at least to the people that have to manage the impacts, the budget officers, the people who manage housing occupancy, to figure out, oh, so we're not going to be able to do this with the money anymore, or these savings will never materialize based upon realistic budgetary outcomes. And then I think the other part of it, which really bears a lot of thought, is, the personnel. So if you're inheriting a housing maintenance operation, do the people that are going to run it actually have the technical experience to just make basic day-to-day decisions? There's an ability to supervise an HVAC mechanic without exactly knowing how HVAC systems work, if you've got good people. But do you know what stuff to buy? Do you know when you're getting your chain pulled? Do you know when you're overpaying for something? And I think those are questions that, if you don't have any experience in dealing with mechanical services at all, that you're going to have to figure out, how do I and my team now suddenly make those kinds of decisions on a day-to-day basis? How do I decide which projects should come up sooner? Do I even understand what these FCAs, if you've got them, that should be one thing, but do I even understand what they're saying and what this stuff means? And I think that's another big thing. Everybody's like, oh, I'll take it over myself, and don't realize that there's a day-by-day, decision-by-decision prioritization of work and things like that that has to be considered. And I think a part of that personnel decision is that when main campus decides they want to take it from us, that they also have to understand managing the stakeholder expectations. So answering faculty about why a classroom is cold is very different than answering a student's parents about why a room is cold, or why there's mold, if it's mold on a wall, and I think that's a very different skill set than a lot of our main campus counterparts typically employ on a day-to-day basis. But that finesse about how to write things and how quickly to respond to things and where you throw resources makes or breaks most of our days. And that's not something they teach you in master's programs, or, teach you really anywhere. We all learn that through the birth by fire process. And I think all of that has to be considered, because that's usually where main campus says to me, I want nothing to do with this. You deal with those parents. And they gladly walk away from most of the stuff that ends up, whether it's my parking lot or theirs, and they'll often say, nope, Brandon, you got that. So I think that's just the beginning of it.
Yeah. That's obviously this one is going to take some discussion, a further discussion, because those are really good points and topics we talked about. And I'm only going to keep everybody for maybe another minute or so, because we're at our time. But this is really important, and I think Paul's and would be my hope out of this is really give some really strong consideration and thought to this, how all the questions that everybody brought up about this, and document it, because if a campus is going to decide to do this, they're going to decide to do it. So how best to prepare someone with the information to go? Chandler brings up a good point, and this is what I found. Housing facilities is a whole lot different than main campus facilities. I've worked on both sides of the fence, and your customer base is totally different in how you manage it. And my experience has been is that main campus facilities doesn't understand that. So obviously, I took down a few names to kind of answer Bart's question a little bit. So do we need data on it? Yeah, to me, we need the financial data. Brandon kind of touched on it. What was it costing us before this move happened, and what did it cost after this move? My experience has been is that it cost a third more or 50% more to get the work done through main campus after main campus facilities took it over. So there's data out there. We just got to put it together, and it's going to take some really strong thought and collaboration. And I think there's some really strong knowledge and experience here on this committee. So yeah, I've got Paul down, I've got Bart down, I've got Brandon down. I'll be involved in that conversation. I'd like to, pick Dee Dee's brain on this, and some others that I know have gone through this. So if you'd like to join, or you'd like to participate in this subcommittee type thing, send me an email, and I'll get something set up, sidebar, from our regular committee here, and we'll start to have those discussions and set some action items and see what we can put together. It's going to take some time because it's a really in-depth project and process that we need to talk about, and to really make it a strong document for others to use, hopefully utilize going forward, making a good sound decision. So.
Hey, Steve, I had the thought that I can send out a meeting up, like recap from this, and send it to the whole listserv, and just have folks reply to that. And Paul, I'll make sure that you're on that email as well. And then that way we can kind of get the ball rolling for folks who may not have been on the call but are also interested in this topic, just to get them all into one little list. So, and then it can kind of run from there with it.
Thank you for that, Joel.
Yeah.
At that, we're a couple minutes over. I appreciate everybody's time today. Again, really good discussion. And I'll leave these other panel discussions. They're not super important. They're just kind of updates to see where we're at, but we'll pick those up in April. With that, thank you all for joining. Be safe. Have a great week. Some of you are on spring break, so take advantage of the quiet while the kids are off campus, right? Anyhow, thank you all.